It is Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flammang, on this wonderful Tuesday morning. Good morning to everyone. Jamie Uyeyama is here with me as always. Jamie, good morning. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Yeah, sorry, I was just looking down at my phone. I just had to be looking at for those who follow him on Twitter, Stats of War, who does some great advanced stats previews that he puts out every week. And I was looking at the Notre Dame versus North Carolina offense versus defense matchup, and if you like the color red, it's good on both sides. It's
color red.
It's bad versus bad.
So it's I've on one of the pods that I'm on lots of pods. I don't know which one this one is referring to, but they're like, the North Carolina defense is bad, right? And so it could be a good matchup for Notre Dame. And I was like, yeah, but Notre Dame isn't really good at the things there where North Carolina is vulnerable. So
they're kind of bad all around, though,
yeah. So it's kind of a tough. It'll be an interesting matchup. So, but
they're both good at nothing.
Here's the thing, Jamie. We did see some good things from Notre Dame offensively against Cal, right?
In the last 2.5 quarters, yes.
Especially after Drew Pine stopped having an existential crisis, I think. And like a lot of people were obviously very unhappy with like the way that the game started. And I heard a few people like kind of direct that at Reese. And I'm like, how is Reese responsible for what Drew Pine is going through right now? I can't, it's like, oh, he called a good game in the second half. It's like, no, I think it was all the same stuff. I definitely didn't make the connection between the way they were playing initially and Tommy Reese. I just didn't. I didn't view it like that. But Jamie, you've done your film reviews and you've done your tail of the tape and that sort of thing. What was your takeaway? Let's just start with the Notre Dame offense. Like, what did you take away from the game that you think might be repeatable going forward?
Yeah, like I would start off 100% agree with you that, I mean, the just complete dysfunction on thing. And obviously, the coaches are part of preparing for the guys for the game, but
right.
I mean, it's player driven. And I just thought it was just all around, just with Pine, and not just Pine, and obviously the guys who jumped off sides and all that kind of stuff too. Guys were mentally shaken. You could tell. And I think once they settled in, you saw some positives. And I think that was the thing, is you saw a lot of positives. And the good things that I saw is obviously running the football. They blocked better than they had the entire year up front. Just a way better job. Like, it wasn't like they weren't dominant, but they were miles and miles better than they were. And they just kind of simplified some things. They relied on just some base runs, right? They ran power, they ran inside zone, they ran duo over and over again. And you know what? It wasn't producing big chunk plays. They only had 2 runs over 10 yards, right, from the running backs. But at the same time, they were able to never get into any negative situations. They were just continually moving them into positive situations. And they only had 1 negative run early in the game. And that's
was the very first one of the game.
It was the very first run in the game, right? Yeah. So we consider that, and havoc rate against the stuff, that was tremendous for Notre Dame. So they did a good job in kind of limiting and not beating themselves, right? So they set them up for that. And I think you gain some confidence from the backs and the offensive line. And then obviously, it was an extremely limited passing game. The average depth of target, 2.8 yards. That's what PFF added at. I mean, that's ugly. That's not what you want. You got to be able to stretch the field more. You got to throw the ball further than 10 yards on the field more than 3 times in the game. But if you look at how the game was managed and what you saw from Pine in the beginning, I thought Reese did a tremendous job of setting his quarterback up to succeed and not setting him up to fail. And then when he had those chances to get those plays, he created big plays basically from scheme that were layups for Pine. So
Right.
if you look at it from that way, I mean, I don't know. You're not going to give, we only scored 24 points. He averaged 4.6 yards per play. You're not going to give Tommy Rees an A+ for his calling game, but I'd say you'd give him a B for considering the circumstances in the game. And I mean, I thought it was a great improvement from him in the game. Now you got to build off it, but something to build on.
Yeah, and you know what? You made reference to scheming a big play, and obviously the touchdown to Tyree is not a big play per se. I mean, it was like a 21 yards, 25 yards, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's 21, yeah.
Right. So it's not like a huge explosive, but at the same time, like it was a touchdown from outside of the red zone, right? And we haven't seen that from Notre Dame yet this year. So let's I'm gonna run that. We could talk about it. It's going to be on a loop. We're going to watch the play a few times and we'll diagram it here. So obviously, send him in motion. You got Tyree running at the linebackers and they turn him loose. And there's a player in the secondary. And the thing with the motion is they had done this earlier in the drive and they got the same action from the safety.
From the safety.
Right. So which obviously helps, right? So so we'll see it one more time and then we'll draw it up here on the little whiteboard. I got a little whiteboard thing. Very excited about it. All right. So I should have had this set up though. All right, Jamie.
So we see it's 21 personnel, right? You see the two backs in the backfield. You see Tyree and you see Estimate, right? And
first of all, I love the 21 personnel. It's just we talked about it and it was so much more 12. And I think in this game they went to 21. And I just love it. I love the idea of having Tyree and Estime in the backfield together. I think it's like as a defense, you're worried about a lot more things. I was, fired up about that. So, all right, Jamie, you talk me through it. I'll draw it up.
And I think you would say that if you're going to talk about putting your best 11 on the field, I think Estime and Tyree are in your best 11. So
especially when it's like that or Bauman, which isn't a shot. I'm just trying to take a shot at Bauman or anything, but it's just like Estime and Tyree are more dangerous.
When you want to be able to present, be more versatile with what you can do with your personnel, it opened things up more, right?
Yeah.
And I think you saw it here, right? So, we see Estime come in motion, go out to the flat, like a little like kind of flare route kind of thing. And you see that safety go with him, right? So they're too high here, right? They were like 58% too high in the first quarter, right? So, too high. They're obviously trying to not, for the most part, they don't want anything over the top, right? And they want to prevent big plays. Right. I don't know why they didn't run more like single high and load up the box earlier in the game when you consider, but that's kind of how they play defense for the most part, right? So, anyways, you see that guy go in motion too high. So now you see the middle of the field open up. But I think what's key here, and you can't see it on the screen, but to the right, that's a 2 receiver side, right?
Yeah. So when Estime motions over here, now you have 3x2 instead of what's 3x2 to the other side. So you're overloading the left.
Yes.
And there's more help to the field over here because here's the nickel.
Yeah. And
that, by the way, that's why they invert the safety because they want more help here.
Yes, exactly. And then the key to this play, really, the first key is getting that safety out of there, right?
Yeah.
So once you get that, after that, you see the safety and, he is eyes on the quarterback the whole way, reading.
So this safety here.
Yes. Or the deep to the right, that safety right there.
Yeah.
And he has eyes on the quarterback the whole way. And Pine is basically like, he's not really looking to throw that way.
No.
That's just taking his eyes there, throwing a pump. He knows that Tyree is the guy they're attacking because it's all in the middle of the field here. And that Mike linebacker that Tyree runs by, that guy is supposed to have Tyree in man, right?
Yeah.
And whether this is just, a bust on his part in that he thought the safety was going to be back there. He there's a miscommunication there where he thought the safety was going to be back there. He didn't have to worry about that guy going vertical or whatnot, or didn't understand that the safety was going to go down with the flare out. I mean, it's a mistake by the Mike linebacker. But even if he's running there, Tyree on a Mike linebacker going up the seam, it still should be a touchdown. So that's why you see the beauty of the design here, right? And when you can't really throw the ball downfield very far, and this is one of the only ones where it was further than 10 yards down the field, right? But when a guy is that wide open and the safety is obviously moving to the right, the top safety, the deep safety on the right there is moving to the right because of the pump. That's why, you know, Moses parts the Red Sea. He's right there, middle of the field, wide open. It isn't all that dissimilar to, like, in terms of him being wide open, to that Oklahoma State game where they ran a cover zero blitz and no one covered him, right? But in this case, it was the Mike was supposed to cover him but didn't. And
right. And here's the thing with the safety play in the back. So this player right here. So I think they're like, I think they go from basically like too high, which is like, I think they might even be in cover 4, honestly, with just jamming. They go from too high here and then they bring it down. So basically this safety needs to move to the middle, right? Because now this safety is vacated. So it's almost like
to rotate over.
Right. So it's either cover 4, cover 2 to cover 3. So he never gets to the middle of the field. And like you said, Drew Pine pumps him, right? So he moves over a little bit. Drew Pine pumps him and then he stays here. You have to be careful as a safety because he's basically in the middle of the field, right? But he's not in the middle of the formation. And there is a difference, okay? It is a key distinction for any safety. Middle of the field is not middle of the formation. And so you need to, like, he needs to be here, basically. Yeah. And so, but he's not aware of it, right? And Tommy Rees, they know. And I think this play was put in specifically for Cal because Drew Pine knows to pump it. He knows to pump, and he knows he's going right back to Tyree. I think this play was schemed specifically for this game. You get the safety going down here. Estime is basically a decoy at this point, and he does, you know, his service is his purpose is served by the fact that the safety moves out of there, makes the pump. This linebacker passes him off because, hey, I have the safety behind me, but you don't, right? So that's where it's like the safety has to be aware, but it's also really good scheme by Rees.
I mean, you could tell he doesn't think that he has him because he doesn't even jam him.
Yeah, he doesn't pay him any attention. He just lets him go, right? And so, look, good scheme, right? Good coaching. That's people talk about Tommy Rees and that sort of thing, and you know, it needs to do a better job getting guys schemed open, and he, you know, did a great job, right? And it's a touchdown, right? Notre Dame had not scored outside the red zone yet, so obviously an important play. Jamie, you had spoken a lot about the running game, right? So you wrote about the running game. You talked to Mike Frank on Power Hour about the running game, and we saw the running game get going. I think you know, PFF graded it as a great game for Alt. Great game for Alt. Good game for Patterson. Good game for Carell on the left side. What was the distinction for you in watching the game between what was going on the left and what was going on the right? Why was there such a big difference in you know, the play for those two groups?
I think the one thing was just I think for Blake Fisher, you know, as the right tackle there, he just still looks like a guy who hasn't started, you know, 6 games yet.
Yeah.
Right. And so he makes mistakes that look like this guy hasn't played a lot of football. And I'm talking about like mental mistakes, technique mistakes, all of this kind of stuff. And I think where Alt looks like he's played more games. And that's where you see that big difference, where you just see like, you just don't see the number of technical mistakes from Blake, where Blake is lunging for a guy here, takes a bad step here, you know, isn't firing off here. Like, you know, like it's just not precise to the point that it is. And that's why you see more plays where Blake, you know, gets beat. Right.
Yeah.
And then I think with Lug, Lug is just, I think he just is who he is. Like I think if you ask him to base block a guy and double team a guy, and when him and Fisher were working together on a double, I mean, they're moving people and doing good things off of that, right? But when you ask him to get in space, do these kind of things, I think if it doesn't look exactly how it's supposed to look on paper, he's not a reactive athlete to make a block if he needs to. If like the linebacker's not where he's supposed to be when he takes his angle, it's hard for him to make it up. And I think that's the one thing with Lug. And to me, that was the difference between those guys, is that you see that, and then it's just and the other thing was too, is that, and it's not like Fisher and Lug too were, trying to finish and doing some of these things too, but the level of like guys finishing on the left side and Carell, you just saw them. Like, I don't say it's effort. It's not effort, but it's like, you can just tell because they're sustaining. It's technique, right? They're stuck on their blocks more, and it matters.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go back to DL because he asked us to show the play after we break it down. So I'm going to bring up the play again. Okay. And so you can see the diagram here, and then I will show you the play, how we all talked about it. Safety moving, Pine pumps, other safety not in position, hit Tyree up the middle, right? So what we'll do is we'll show the play first, break it down, and then we'll show it one last time. Good suggestion by DL. Thank you for bringing that up. All right. So we got another comment in the game. Did Mayer get doubled most of the game? So I don't know that he got doubled because they didn't really throw it down the field that much. He certainly wasn't doubled on the touchdown. They left that poor safety one-on-one with no help behind.
Yeah, that was a cover zero.
Which was zero cover, which is tough, right? Like that's a tough assignment for him. That's going to be difficult. So we just talked about the running game and that sort of thing and what that looked like. So we're gonna show another play here. We'll show another play where we get a good inside run here with good blocking, and we see another replay of it. Carell doing a good job. See, Lug's kind of like he's falling over and he's grabbing the guy's leg, and that's why he's all upset.
Well, this wasn't a penalty. The 99, like, come on, buddy, right? But it's not.
Well, he doesn't like it grabbing his leg.
Yeah. But that's something they're never going to call that. You know what I mean? Like, unless he actually gets tackled to the ground, they're never going to call that.
Right.
But yeah, that's how you can kind of see with Lug too. Athletically, like he doesn't keep his feet all the time. He's someone that he just not the same level. And I think too with Blake too. When I see him like lunging or getting beat or like, getting a push pull, a guy gets a push pull on him. To me, that's more of him technique because I think Blake is a good athlete. He's actually shockingly good athlete for his size. But with Lug, I think it's more of athletically. You know what I mean? Like he has to give it all, and he doesn't have that kind of balance and stuff that a lot of guys have, right? And it's not to say like, he's firing off the ball there. Like there's nothing wrong with that, right? But on this specific play, right, it's a power, right? It's a power. You're pulling the backside guard. And you could do a variety of different ways, right? Mm-hmm. They've done it with the thing where they've had.
So they pull Patterson that way, block over. And this is actually really good by Carell. You brought it up in the. I'm going to try to do a different one here because you brought it up with Patterson, and I thought it was really like. Or Carell, it's really good because he gets this player here, and he's able to get on the opposite side and seal him off from this side, so that Tyree can get it and then bounce it back this way.
Yeah,
it's a good job by Carell. It's like a really good.
The ball is the ball is supposed to design to follow the guard, really, right? That's where the
right. So you follow the puller. So he's trying to get up in this.
Yeah. But, like we mentioned with Lug, he's not winning at the point of the guy gets off the block, whatever, right? So that's there. There isn't a lot of – it's a pretty good job on the play side by Cal, right? And because of that, Tyree has to look like has to be patient. There's
Yeah.
nothing there. And then he sees the cutback lane. The reason the cutback lane is there is because, like you said, Corral he's on his block and he's down blocking to that one tech defensive tackle, who's on the inside shade of the guard there.
Tough
And
assignment.
it is a tough assignment. And the key is that he sticks on it.
Yeah.
He sticks on it. And even though that guy ends up fighting across his face eventually, the fact that Corral stuck with the block was what allowed Tyree to cut back.
Yeah.
So it was great vision, great cut, great little jump cut by, I think, Alt's kicking his guy out. Does a fine job. Standard does his job, right?
Yeah.
But it's Corral sticking on his block that allows this, and I think this ended up being like a 7-yard gain, or maybe even more. I can't remember, but it was a nice game for Notre Dame.
Right. And the other part too is when people watch this, like I was watching it and I thought, man, Tyree could actually just bounce it out this way. But it is a good cut by Tyree, because if you look at the safeties, this safety is closer to line of scrimmage than this one. So he has greater run responsibility to come and fill, just by nature of where he's lined up, right? So this is like looks cover 2. This is probably a situation where he's going to come out this way a little bit. And so the fact that he cuts back into a player who isn't doesn't have the run responsibilities of the other one is like a really good decision by Tyree. Also, you see this linebacker moving. These are fast flow linebackers. Yeah. So they're flowing this way at the snap, and he's able to get the ball, cut back inside, right? And
if that backside safety takes a bad angle, then it could be a house call, right? Like that's right. Yeah. So that's kind of why, like, it really was. I mean, it was the right read by Tyree in every way, really.
And honestly, like, we haven't seen a ton of that from Tyree, like in the first 2 years. Like, this is a play, this is a run Kyron would make, right?
Yes.
He doesn't just jam in there, right? He doesn't just like put his head down. And we always talk about, oh, he's running hard. It's like, yeah, but that's not very smart, is it? So he doesn't just jam in there. He's patient, gets the ball, cuts it back, and it's a positive play, and then the drive can continue. And
this is what I saw from Tyree in high school, and I kind of thought you'd see more. And then, unfortunately, last year when he was fully healthy, the line was trash, and so there weren't many chances to cut back or do anything.
So Tyree got very unlucky last year because his health like deteriorated once the line
got better and they started blocking better. And then obviously in the bowl game, they didn't even bother trying to run. Right. So there was that, but yeah. So now, I mean, if the line starts blocking like this too, I think, there's going to should be more opportunities for you see Tyree show that he's like a better inside runner than a lot of people think for a guy who's not the biggest guy.
And you would think they should be able to build off of this against North Carolina, because they don't have the type of defense, that has given Notre Dame trouble, right? Like, so obviously Cal is a pretty good front seven, right?
Yeah.
Not a bad defense. The reason they're losing games, right? Good linebackers. The reason they're losing games is not because of their defense. Their offense is terrible, and we knew that right going into the game. Obviously, Ohio State has a good defense, right? So, that's not North Carolina's thing. That's not what they're going to do, and they should be able to continue to build off this stuff. All right, so we'll show the play one more time here. Cutting back.
You see Corral, and then look, he's pushing his dude out. There's Corral. There you go.
Yeah.
Finish. Keep going. Keep his feet moving. Great position. Like, and just terrible job by the defensive tackle there too, playing peekaboo. I always hate that. You're just like, what are you doing? Like, you're looking to see where the back going. How about you get off the block, buddy? Too bad. Didn't matter because Corral was inside of him.
Yeah.
Finishing.
Yeah, not good. And Lug gets thrown off. Lug loses his feet and gets thrown off. If he doesn't, then that play is going to hit up where it's supposed to.
Yeah.
But that's okay, right? Like, it's not hat on a hat. A back can always find a way with hat on a hat, and you're in front of someone and you're moving them somewhere, right? Like, this is where Chris Tyree was so effective last year, just being able to or not Chris Harvey, Kyron Williams was able to find gaps, even if they weren't blocking how it was technically supposed to go. He could always find space as long as you're moving somebody. You have a hat on a hat and you're moving somebody.
One other thing I should just add there too, and it's not that Alt did his job, which was good.
Yeah.
But if he really kicked the crap out of that D end, then it's a big. So when you say like Alt played a good game and the line played a good game, whatever, it's like if he dominated that guy, it's a 15-yard run probably, right? Like the safety has to make that tackle. And if the safety, and that's a much tougher tackle for the safety to make than anyone in the front seven, right? So if the safety misses that tackle with Tyree running full speed, he's gone, right? Yeah. So that's why too, when you think about it, and that's what made Carell's play so impressive, because technically a lot of people could say, I just got to get in the way here. Make sure this guy, I'm closing down this gap.
He's right, especially when he's to my outside, right? He's to my left already. I want to take him there. So it's almost like you could, like what you're describing is basically a stock block for a wide receiver. Just like, just get in his way. Yeah.
And so that's the kind of thing. If like Alt blocked it as well as Carell there, then it's a bigger play. And that's, it's also a teaching moment. And it's not that Alt didn't play a good game. He played a very good game. But I'm just saying in that particular instance, you could say all these guys, even if you technically did your job and you're getting a plus on the play, he could do better.
Yeah. All right. So the other thing that people have talked about to me and to you and to the on Irish Sports Daily and on the message boards and that sort of thing is the linebacker play. Like linebacker play is like a big talking point this week. And so I wanted to talk about some of the things that we saw from those guys and some of the, kind of the misses. And you highlighted a play on Twitter where they ran a counter and kind of an explosive play, not explosive, but a positive running play for them early in the game. And you were talking about Riley Mills. So I want to go over that. I'm going to pull it up because it seems like I can't describe what he's doing I can't make sense of it other than he's supposed to do this. But you're the defensive lineman, so you can talk about it, and then we'll kind of draw it up here.
So when you see Riley Mills, and he's on the right there, going laterally there, so it looks like they are calling some type of slant or stunt, and if if they're going in, but the way he's moving there, and you see him like basically almost sprinting. To our left, his right, and the way that it looks there, it looks like they are calling a stunt where both tackles are moving to the left and he's looping around to the right, and
so
that would be try to draw it up then. And that would be the other tackles aren't showing that, so
what you're talking about is slant, and then basically like all the way around. Basically, is what you're talking about. Because that's what we saw.
That's what you see from Mills, but you don't see that from the defensive tackles.
Right.
Which this is why it makes me think Mills is the guy who screwed up. And so what you're taught, and really what it looks like with both the defensive tackles, is that they're both slanting the same direction that Mills is going.
Right.
And that's why they kind of get washed.
Right.
Where they get washed down, and it happens.
So what you're saying is what we saw is this, and then like this.
Yes. And so what it is a brutal feeling to be a defensive tackle and to like you're slanting one way and then they're running the other because you're caught and then you have to fight back across the face. So unless you just get up the field so quickly and are able to just get back and redirect to make a play, it's an extremely hard play. And sometimes it's just whatever. Sometimes it's bad luck, right?
Right. And the other part too is so Bertrand, basically they pass each other. So Bertrand loops back around because he's following the pullers, right?
Yes.
And I think what you talked about on Twitter was Marist is a little bit of this and then go instead of just this go.
Yeah, and so we'll get to Maris in a second, but
Okay.
the thing with Mills and all those slanting there and the way that it looks up front and so Brendan here mentioned in the comments that was a perfect offensive play call that just happened to not burn Endy badly somewhat, but with the call that Endy had, which I think should have happened if it was executed properly, it actually should have been the perfect play call for Mills to get right up the field and run right into that back, smack him in the face, and get like a 3-yard loss, tackle for loss.
So
right?
basically, instead of Mills doing this, it's like just slant right here.
Yes,
because that's where everyone else is going.
In how you're taught, or like how I taught it when I coached defensive line, how I was taught is like you lateral step. Right. And it's not like slanting your body fully, right? It's lateral step and then up the field, right? Because you're only getting over to the one gap. You don't want to go 2 gaps over because then you cause in this kind of situation, that's how you cause a big hole. And that's why there was a big hole. So Mills is supposed to just step, get up the field. And if he does that, there's no one blocking him. It's supposed to be this 11, who was a tight end here, right? Like, that guy's not blocking him, right? You see what happens. So he would come up right away unblocked and would have hit that in the face, right? So obviously that doesn't happen. So, I think it's a screw up on Mills there. And when and then back to the Maris part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't do a bad job here. He's not doing a bad job. He's doing what he's actually supposed to. Probably
he ultimately makes the play.
He makes the play. It's just too far down the field. And, and he's slow flow. He's shuffling, right? He's not getting out of position. He's not playing too wild with it. But I think this is the one thing with the linebackers too, is probably it's probably an adjustment to playing for Golden, working with Laurinaitis and everything too, is that these guys are trying to play exactly how they're taught technique wise, and they should, right? Obviously,
of course.
And it's similar to, that's how Clark Lee would want it too, right? He would want it how he taught those guys, right, as well. But there's a certain point where you have to just go out and play, right? And you have to just be able to go and play freely. So when Maris sees that puller, he's either got to shuffle quicker and get out there and then attack downhill, or what you really want to see, and what you want to see, and this is what obviously when you're getting elite linebacker play, is you see that puller and you hit it and he's going backside, like shooting that vacant gap and making that play. And obviously that's taking a risk in that kind of situation, but that is the elite level play, is when you're the guy who's able to do that.
The problem with that if he had done that in this situation, he probably runs into Mills' butt, because he would be here, because Mills goes here and he would be here and they would be running into each other. So he wouldn't even be making the tackle. So it actually kind of works out.
And that's kind of worked on this, but
and that's why like it's very important that everyone is doing their job, because that's what you expect, right? You expect that he's not going to be looping around, and so he's comes in here. But it is funny, like watching this. It's like, man, if he had actually done that, he's not even in the play because he's running right into Mills' back. So that's hey, defense, right? That's how you gotta fit it up.
And so like. Kind of bringing it back, because a lot of people are talking about the linebacker play, and they should be. I don't think it's been very good. You know what I mean? Like, it's not up to the standard that it should be. And you see, first of all, you want to see him react a little bit quicker. To that, take that first initial shuffle step quicker, and then get there. All of a sudden, he's meeting 6 in the hole rather than having to lunge for this tackle. Right. So that's important. But
so what he could have done is so there's a gap right there, and he really would have run into Mills.
because of how Mills played it. But
right. Yeah.
it is kind of like mind-boggling what is going on with Mills here on this play. So like and that's also too why we don't know the specific call.
That's why I almost don't even want to like. I don't want to go in too much because it's so kind of inexplicable to me that also, maybe he's actually doing it right.
But the other thing is that because that's just not something
that's such a weird thing he just did.
It's not something that when you're getting that kind of like heavy it's that kind of look, that constricted look.
Yeah.
And I believe it was a first down call too. So it's not like whatever. So it's 1 in 10. And Notre Dame hasn't done a lot of like slanting and stunting upside, especially not early downs. Like basically very little early downs. So for them to kind of pull like a TTE is what they would call it, right? A TTE is like the tackles go and goes around. Like, that would be wild. Like I don't imagine. So that's why I think it was Mills screw up. And but I don't know, right? But it is like, because and that's another play too where you look at where you're like, Notre Dame had 6 sacks in the game. They should have had 8, whatever, right? They did a great job pass rushing this game. Great job. And overall against the run, very good job in this game. But you're like, it looks to me like that should have been a gimme tackle for loss, and it wasn't.
Right. And we've got one more, and this one will be another one you put on Twitter where it's
oh yeah, this one is like, I really don't even know what to say here with Jack Kaiser. So this is one of the rare times where Notre Dame is in their 4-3, which I guess is technically base, but it's not really base for Notre Dame this year because base is 4-2-5, right? They played nickel when they're every time. It's so different from what they've done before, where Notre Dame was almost in their base 4-3. Well, not almost. They were too much, in last year. And you could get away with it when you have Jeremiah Wosu-Koromoa as your rover, because he's this hybrid freak athlete who can like actually cover slots, but he's a linebacker. But it's different when you're like this. So this is, a heavier formation. You have the 2 tight ends on that side. So they have, alignment there. You see Marist is, and you see Notre Dame has shifted over, right? They've done a great job adjusting to this.
So they're in an uneven front and they move over.
They move. Yeah. And Marist is lined up as the outside backer on that side, the edge on that side. So that's why he's not inside there. In the middle is JD Bertrand. On the right there is Jack Kaiser. And I think, Marcus Freeman is, I think he's extremely diplomatic about not criticizing players. And I do appreciate it. Like, I think that's awesome. If I was a player for him, I'd be like, man, my coach really has my back, because he could just be ripping me for some of this stuff. Like, and as you mentioned, Jack Kaiser is learning how to play kind of inside linebacker
in the box,
right? In the box. And when they're in 4-2-5, obviously he's always pretty much in the box, right? So, and this play in particular is just like, I don't know what he's doing or what he's seeing on this play, because if I understand maybe his eyes aren't on backside puller, which you get there, even though also too, I mean, can you put a circle on their left guard? Look at this dude's stance.
Right. Yeah.
He is pulling.
Like, he is definitely not.
This is another thing too, where you got to be able to pick this kind of stuff up, and that's on the defensive line to pick that up and whatever. And the really good guys who notice that kind of stuff, they do, right? So anyways, that guy pulls. So normally you see linebackers, you got to kind of have like the full view there, and you see that pull, and runs coming your way or runs meant to go outside. And when Kaiser sees down block
from this guy,
and
this guy,
ball's going out, man. That's that is like defense. That's you learn that in like pee-wee football almost. That is very rudimentary,
right?
To playing linebacker. I played linebacker in high school. I didn't play it in college. I played linebacker in high school. It's like one of the things that you like learn is like the triangle is this like and down block this whatever, like kick out that, like you learn all these things.
Yeah.
And what you see, because that tells you where the ball's going to go. Like, and that's why, offense have gotten better at showing you influence blocks where they're showing you something, but they run something different against it because it's trying to mess with your keys. But they didn't even do anything to mess with his keys here. So I don't know what Kaiser's doing here.
Right. So what ends up happening is this guy is going to down block on him.
Stumbles.
He stumbles and falls, but he's still he almost like he stops as if he's going to follow him, like almost like he thinks that he's going to release it. I don't know if they're in man.
Maybe that's
the only thing I could think of. Is like he's stumbling and he thinks, oh, it's like a decoy. He's gonna release backside, and maybe he has him in man, and maybe that's why. But it's like very slow flow, right? Never gets there. And then he kind of gets in JD Bertrand's way, who's also pretty slow. So like the tight end stumbles, ends up blocking him. And then he never gets into the hole, which is another problem, which is why JD Bertrand can't scrape around in here. Yeah. He has to go all the way around, and he ends up just in a trail position to where the running back just gets a free run, like right into the secondary, and the guard comes around and pulls on I think this is DJ Brown, and he kicks him out. And DJ Brown, like he has to set a wall right here. He can't let him get outside. So he does his job in that respect so that the players scrape him from
and
behind.
Also too, he's a safety. So you don't expect him to just absolutely like obliterate
he's
the
not
pull
gonna,
or anything. He does his job.
Kill the guard.
He does exactly what he was supposed to do. And because he's supposed to have help inside.
Right. You have to send him back inside. That's the one thing.
And DJ Brown did that. And good excuse to say DJ Brown playing pretty well.
DJ Brown's playing really well. I mean, aside from the
15-yard penalty,
15-yard penalty, which isn't really.
I think DJ Brown is jumped up a level this year. To me,
it's not a commentary on how he's playing. That was a poor decision.
Yeah.
But like the goal line hit where he forced the field goal. That's not even his play. The corner, the two corners, they mixed it up. They're supposed to combo the slot and the outside receiver. There's a slant in and out, and they blow the coverage. They turn the inside guy loose, and DJ Brown comes over the top and makes the tackle where it just stops him dead in his tracks. Never had a chance to get away from him. Forces a field goal, which is, when you're not scoring a bunch of points, anytime you can save points in the red zone, that's a huge thing. So DJ Brown's playing really well this year.
Yeah. I should also mention too, because and this shows you too, it's a complementary football where Kaiser could obviously, he does not a good job in this play, but some of that stuff can be remedied if Justin Admilola, like technically, I guess he's, I guess he'd be like a 9 technique, whatever, right? He's outside shade of that the first tight end, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's got to get up the field quicker and win against this other tight end who's down blocking on him.
Yeah.
Like he's too soft here. And that's kind of been the thing with Admiral and Foskey, really, is like you got to see these guys dominate tight ends more. Mm-hmm. Like that has to happen. So if Justin Admiral could have kicked that guy's butt and then made a play, and then all of a sudden we're not even talking about how bad Kaiser played it.
Yeah.
But the fact that he didn't, it's like it was just bad complementary defense, outside of on that side, outside of DJ Brown, who did a good job.
Right. So that's, that's kind of what we've seen. And there's been a lot of questions about, obviously there's been a lot of questions about linebacker play and that sort of thing. And that's what we're seeing, right? And I think we do see there, like with Kaiser, right? Maybe he's thinking, oh, this guy could be doing this, and maybe he's thinking, something else. But it's like it's thinking.
Yeah,
it's not
reacting to.
Yeah, like it's not free flowing, like playing with instincts. It's I'm thinking about this, right? And I think same thing with Marist and same thing with Bertrand. Like I think there's just a lot of thinking right now and not a lot of playing. And so that's obviously something that's got to get remedied.
And I think that's why you see when the guy who looks the best when he's like blitzing or whatever, it's when Marist is asked to blitz or he's asked to play off the edge, he looks the best out of all the linebackers when he's just doing that. But when they're asked to read keys and react and trigger and all these kind of things, those guys just aren't playing well right now. So they're not processing at the level that they're not playing free. They're not playing free. And I know a lot of people want the younger guys to play, but I'm guessing if the older guys are having a problem processing this stuff, then those younger guys they definitely got to be having problems processing that stuff. Or they might be able to play more free, but then they might get beat on other things assignment wise. Like, because in coverage, I think the linebackers have played really, really well in coverage, right? Like how many times have you don't see a lot of stuff like underneath because these guys are on top of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Just generally speaking, right? And this goes for the offense as well, especially with like Tobias Merriweather and, Eli Raridan and that sort of thing. Holden Stays. Generally speaking, this is something that I've kind of noticed over the years that I've been watching Notre Dame, and not just Notre Dame, but just like football in general. Like when you're asking a freshman to play in response to poor play for someone else, just because someone is playing poorly doesn't make that other player any more ready to go.
Yes. That's the 100%. I couldn't agree more, Greg.
like Kyle Hamilton, right? He didn't need to play. They had Alohi Gilman and they had Jalen Elliott, two captains. But it's like, okay, we have this guy. He needs to be on the field.
Yeah. You want a guy like a Michael Mayer, same thing. That's what you want. A guy who's so exceptional that, we gotta find a role for this guy. That's what you want. A little bit like Lorenzo Styles last year, where you're like, we got to do something with this guy. Like, I don't care if it's just throwing him hitches and, getting him yards up the catch. Like, we got to do something. Like, that's what you want to see from freshmen, and they earn it, and then they're like too good to keep off the field. Which is also too probably why last year with people like, man, they should have started Joe Alt from the start. Maybe if they did, it would have looked just as ugly as when they're putting in Carmody and Baker and all these guys and whatever, right? Maybe that was just the time that we're like, okay, Alt's ready now, right? Like, so that's something that everyone who's a fan, I get it. Like, you're like, Jalen Sneed, man, like, it's like these guys suck because they're not good athletes. And I'm not saying that Sneed and like Prince Colley aren't better athletes than Bo Bauer and JD Bertrand and Jack Kaiser, whatever. Like, they probably are. Although Kaiser's a pretty good athlete. But like, look, it doesn't matter how an athlete, if you don't know what you're doing or if you're confused at all on a certain things, you don't play fast. Right. And so like Morrison, I think you see like Clarence Lewis is playing pretty well.
Clarence Lewis is playing great football, right? Like the best that he's played, and he didn't start. Yeah. Ben Morrison started the game. He came in the first two series.
What Freeman said in his press conference about that was perfect, right? Because it's like if a guy is doing that, and then this is how he responds to, it's exactly what you want to see from defense. So I hope that you would see if you see like Cully or Sneed or whoever. It doesn't sound like Sneed is close playing. He's like scout team right now. But like say Cully, for example, or Junior Tui Halamaka, if you see those guys play a lot more this week, it's because they were like, well, they got their stuff right. because they were ready to play, rather than, whatever. Because my guess is in this game, because Bertrand's going to be out the first half, is you're going to see a lot of Bo Bauer. Even though Bo Bauer didn't play a lot last game.
Yeah.
So, but I think because they probably have more trust in Bauer. So, and that's just how it is. And you got to earn that trust, and you earn it through practice. You earn it through, like, are you doing all the film study? Everything. And it's like, even in that 2020 season when Marist was, I think at the beginning of the year, he was like co-starter with Shane Simon, but Simon played, and you look like Marist was like swimming out there.
Yeah.
And you saw like Simon kind of knew what he's doing. Simon wasn't playing well, but he just didn't screw up really. And then wasn't making plays, but he just didn't screw up. And then later on, Marist, things started to click for him, and he started making plays. And then he eventually took over as a starter. And that's what could happen with a lot of guys this year. And that's what you hope. Like, so Tobias Merriweather, I know you pointed out, Greg, right, about the thing about him. He's supposed to go in motion. Didn't go in motion. Like, those are just like, that's why you don't play. And if you do that once you get in a game, and you're not going to play much after that. That's just how it is. Right.
Like, they talk about trust, like Freeman said it a ton, right? Trust, right? And so they I don't know for a fact that Tobias Merriweather was supposed to go in motion. Okay. I know that Pine is looking over there and going like this, right?
Yeah.
So I know he's doing that. The ball gets snapped while he's not even looking, right? So it messes up the play. Okay. The play gets messed up. I know they didn't put him in after that. So
put 2 and 2 together.
I'm putting 2 and 2 together there. And so it's just like one of those things, like, we want to play you. We want to, like, clearly they want to play Tobias Merriweather, right? Like, who doesn't want to play him? Like, there's no way Chancey Stuckey's like, you know what I don't want is to play this gazelle.
This guy who's like the most talented.
Yeah. Like, standing next to me.
Yeah.
I don't want to play. Of course you want to play him. Right.
Yeah.
But then you put him in and he makes a mistake that costs the team. And so it's like, okay, like maybe it's not his time this week. Right. Maybe we're just going to go with the other guys. Okay. And look, I fully expect Tobias Merriweather is going to get more and more time. I don't think there's any way, like, he will get in a series against North Carolina. Absolutely. He will. Yeah. Right. And he knows, like, Tobias Merriweather knows, like, I went in the game and I messed up. Right. No good. Right. So they're not going to put me in, but he knows he's going to get another chance.
And the other thing is that it's like, he did that. So how did he respond in practice this week?
Right.
And then was he on all that kind of stuff? Because I think here's another example. KJ Wallace last year gives up the big play against Toledo. He's literally never heard from again. He's transferring after the season. I mean, he probably was, they obviously took him out because that was a big mistake, whatever. But if he had come back and then all of a sudden you're like, man, he just came out and practiced at such a different level after that,
right?
Then he'd be playing. It's just like Tariq Bracy. People said he was like cooked 2 years ago. They're like, this guy, I don't think he's ever going to play again.
Right.
Think about the last time when they went to travel to North Carolina. He got beat bad twice for touchdowns, and then they're like, then, well, the next Clifford Jefferson or whatever, right? Like, that's what happens with guys. But look at how this guy's responded, and look how much hard he's worked. And like, he's the defensive MVP so far, right? So, I mean, how do they respond and all that kind of stuff? So that's the other thing that people need to take into account, is that how are these guys going to respond to it? Because Notre Dame has a lot of guys on the roster that can get a lot better. And if that happens, then the team they look like in the first 3 games could look a lot different by the time they end up playing BYU. So
there is the other end of the coin. We said it last year with the offensive line, right? Like, they look terrible. There's the other side of that, where they if they figure things out, and all of a sudden you become like a functional unit that can, put things together that is complementary to the rest of the team and the rest of the offense, then you got something, right? And I think that's what the passing game too, right? The same thing, right?
Yeah.
I think people, Drew Pine, 2.6 yards per attempt or 2.8 or whatever it was. That's obviously not good, right? But like as you watch the game, and you think to yourself, okay, let's get it. Like we can run the ball. Let's get it to 3rd and 3.
Yeah.
Then you're 2.6 air yards or whatever it is, and that's fine because it's 3rd and 3, right? And we can get first downs that way. So it's the, I think Reese's the game is the game. I think that in the other, like in the game plan, I think there were probably shot plays that they just said we're not going to even try to get to these because Drew Pine's kind of freaking out, and we need to get through this game. We need to win, right?
Yeah.
And they found a way to win the game, and so then you move on and you find a way to win a game another kind of way, right?
Yeah.
And if that means Drew Pine throws a lot more, or he's throwing deeper routes and that sort of thing, then great. Right. And if it means we need to go to Steve Angeli after the bye or whatever, then great. But you have to take the information that you're given and make the best of it. And I think that's what Tommy Rees did with the offense. I think that's what they're doing with the wide receiver position, with all that stuff, tight ends, everything. Like they got to win a game. They had to do anything they could to win a game, and they got to keep doing that until you see consistently good play. Right. And they haven't seen that yet. Right. You don't want to start making changes from position of weakness because then you're just throwing shots at the wall. Right. And that's not good because you don't know what's going to happen. Right. Everyone says, oh, play all freshmen at the skill positions, and Steve Angeli and do all that. And it's like,
so you want everybody to get fired is basically what you're saying.
Well, it's like that's not like the coaches. The team can't operate that way.
No,
they just can't. So it's obviously if they put Tobias Merriweather in the game, great. I love it. If they put Eli Raridan in the game, great. Like I want to see it, but I'm not going to sit here and be like they're bad for not doing that.
No,
because I don't know that, right? And they don't know that. Like you take the information, you get the information, and then you comment on the information, right? This is why it happened, right? Why is Notre Dame only throwing the ball 3 yards down the field? Well, this is why, right? And then we show you why. Why isn't X playing? This is why, and we show you why. So that's all it is. Because that it's come up a bunch this week now, and it's been anytime the team's not playing well, people are like, well, why aren't we playing different people? So that's a common thing. But I think that's a good way to end the show, Jamie. What do you think?
I think so.
I had a good time.
I had a great time. I like to talk ball. I think this is the funnest thing that I do all week is talk this kind of stuff with you. I love doing it. I love talking about these plays. Like obviously, I feel like people can watch it and learn some things and maybe think about things that maybe they didn't think of when they watched the game, or maybe if they rewatch the game, or sometimes people share stuff on Twitter and they're like this, but maybe they don't understand exactly. Like if you didn't understand what Riley Mills was maybe supposed to do on that play, you're thinking of it in a different way, right?
Yeah.
And or if you didn't understand, because if you watch the game, I wasn't really paying attention too closely to what Jason Garrett was saying during the game, but I don't think he mentioned the fact that Drew Pine pumped that guy and then got the safety.
Yeah.
He just talked about them clearing out that safety and whatever. And those are all just little things that are that makes the play. And that's what you figure out. And you're like, oh, this was really well done, rather than oh, this was nice and just whatever. And then you find and you learn more about it. And that's what it's my favorite thing to do after the games.
Cool. All right, buddy. We will see. I think we'll see everyone on Thursday, and we'll do the North Carolina preview and that sort of thing, and we'll talk about that. Jamie's gonna dive deep into the Tar Heels and what the matchup is going to be there. You have your War Room show with Mike tomorrow evening around, I think it's 5, or is it 8 Eastern?
8 Eastern, 5 right. Pacific.
Talking football, the Notre Dame football team, the college football in general, taking questions and all that sort of thing. So that's a really good time. So everyone tune into that. We'll be there on Thursday. Post-game show on Saturday. I'll be on it this week. That should be a good time. morning after show. So the point of listening all this, you're going to want to hit the subscribe button. You're going to want to hit the like button, right? So you can be attuned to all that stuff. Jamie has his 6 Thoughts on Thursday coming out. I'll probably make another video here or there on Wednesday or Friday, maybe both days. So we'll see. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We will talk to you at least on Thursday.